terrible secret to tell my subscribers, for I am in fact a vampire. Hey everybody, this is My Profile is Great. I have been going through a movie adaptation kick lately. See, I really find it fascinating when it's like, here's a book. Now here's a film based on the book. Let's see what the difference are and just dissect it and look at everything. And that's how I end up reading books like Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire. See, it's pretty slim. It's got a lot of content. It's very, very vampire-y. I love the hell out of this book, let me tell you. This is one of those treats where I pick up a book. I'm not all that much of a reader, I must confess. I am somebody who I have to force myself to read a book most of the time. I tell myself, okay, set number of pages that we've got to read. Okay, go. You got to finish this book within a week. And that's how I devour that kind of stuff. I enjoy reading. I'm just kind of somebody who gets easily distracted with things. Like, unless I really dedicate myself to an ideal of completionism, I rarely get past like the first 200 pages of a book, or the first few episodes of a TV show, or really the first few levels of a video game. I'm somebody who kind of dabbles in that kind of stuff. So when I come across a book that I not only just start going crazy over it, but I really want to get all the way to the end as quickly as I can, that is a real sign of marksmanship, I think. And Anne Rice is a master craftsman of her particular literary style. I think I would call it horror eroticism, because everything that she writes has vague erotic undertones in it. And I think this comes from her background of having written erotic fiction before, and I'm okay with that. You know, I really like eroticism when it's done right. I think there's something very human inside of us that kind of has that lust factor, and Interview with the Vampire has that all over the place. You know, a lot of the characters don't have direct sex with anybody, but you get the undertones of it. Like, every time a vampire bites somebody, it's obviously a metaphor for intercourse. Like, she makes it as clear as day. And so you're kind of sitting there going, wow, a lot of this is actually, as horrifying as it is, there's something kind of sexy about it at the same time. So it keeps you interested on that level. And on the other level, it's all about the psychology of this particular vampire family. You've got Lestat and you've got Louis. And Louis is the newly formed vampire, and he has a hard time kind of grasping the concept of what it means to be a vampire. He doesn't like killing people. He hardly likes to kill animals at all. While Lestat, according to this book, I hear that later on you hear things from Lestat's perspective in the later books, and some of what Louis says in this book is false. But Lestat is kind of just a bloody killer. He goes out there, he drinks people's blood, he enjoys what he does, because he realized that, you know what, I'm a vampire, I'm just gonna go with it. And Louis is kind of a really sucky vampire when you think about it, no pun intended, because he's way too human. Eventually he ends up catching the attention of a bigger vampire later on, who really is fascinated by the fact that he's human. But through most of the book, it's him struggling with it, it's him forming this attachment with this little vampire girl that they both created, and it's all just has these confusing, conflicting themes about humanity. You know, I think that's what makes monsters so interesting to us, because we'd like to fill in our own perspective on them. Like, we like to think, wow, what must it be like to be that kind of a monster? And this deals with that, but also doesn't, like, sugarcoat it. Like, let's look at Twilight, for example. In Twilight, they take the example of, like, okay, look at this monster of this vampire, but let's study him. But they make it really, really clean and very sort of G-rated, where you look at this character and he thinks he's really this horrible monster, but then you look at it and he's like a vegetarian. He goes out there and he attacks animals. He tries his very best not to kill people, and it's not really all that interesting. You kind of go, dude, you need to get over yourself. You're not that bad. And then you look at something like Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire. These vampires do kill people. Like, they do. Like, a vampire who doesn't kill people is just a freaking weirdo. And that's Louis for a long time there, until he realizes, you know what, I'm a vampire. And he embraces it. And there's something sort of oddly beautiful about that. about this arc that this character goes through and his acceptance of what he ultimately is. Is he evil? Is he not evil? Is he just a part of the circle of life, part of the food chain, really? Should he feel bad about feeding on these people when ultimately that's, what a vampire does? It's those kinds of questions that make Anne Rice's writing so powerful as you're discovering all these different elements. Like, for example, the little vampire girl that they convert. She can't grow up. She's stuck in this child's body, and hundreds of years pass, and she has a woman's mind, and she's stuck in it, and she struggles with it throughout the course of the book. She never really comes to like a real acceptance of it, and why should she? It's a horrible thing that she's going through. So the main theme of Interview with the Vampire, I think, is internal struggle. And if you're not really into that sort of thing, where it's just all about characters and characters dealing with themselves, there isn't a whole lot here other than the vampire mythology to get you going. But I love that kind of stuff. Internal monologuing all the way, baby. And this is right up my alley. I would give it 2 thumbs up and a couple of vampire bites. Because my teeth, I have some really sharp canines. I wonder if that's going to end up haunting me sometime later in life. But until then, look forward to more mutterings. I do.